And good evening, or good afternoon, everyone. As introduced, my name is Greg, and I look after the Dell relationship for Brocade for Asia Pacific. I'm actually based in Sydney, Australia, so I promise you at the start, no cricket jokes, okay? And we'll see how we go. I need the... Right. So it's been quite fortunate to present after all the other co-speakers. I think they've set the scene quite well for today. I think all of us are quite aware that, change is inevitable. Data will continue to grow. The demands that consumers or your internal IT people or internal clients are placing on you will continue to be there. From Brocade's perspective, we're a networking company. So we actually look at change as the need to ensure that we can optimise networks to meet the challenges that are occurring with this significant data growth. Having said that, though, it's not purely about accessibility. It's about other things. I mean, consumers are accessing your data from various areas, as mentioned before. We have mobile devices. So there's a lot of requirements around compliancy. There's requirements around security of that data. As Phil mentioned, this whole concept of big data or data warehousing, that's placing massive requirements on you and, of course, the infrastructures. And so at Brocade, we are providing solutions that will assist you so that as you move forward, you can protect the investment you make in your infrastructure today, knowing that in 5 or 10 years' time, that infrastructure will still be valid and it will evolve with the different types of solutions or options that come out. So just briefly what I want to talk about today, I have less than 20 minutes now. I'm going to touch on a number of products that we have that we just introduced. Having said that, we have a booth outside and we'll be here all afternoon, so please come up and talk to us about these. But literally, I want to talk about who Brocade is, for those of you who may not know who we are. A little bit on protocols, just where you may use particular styles of protocols. And then I want to introduce you to our next generation of data center products, around 16 gigabytes, as well as introduce you to next generation products on fibre channel over Ethernet. And at the very end, I'm just going to talk to you about a little software tool which can assist you to look at your current network and actually help you as you make decisions going forward. If we've got time, we can do a Q&A, but as I said, we're around all day. So very briefly on who we are, Brocade. I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say if you have deployed a fibre channel network, fibre channel based SAN, then I would suggest that 8 out of 10 of those SANs are Brocade products. We have over 70 to 80% of the market share around fibre channel. We've been around since 1995, and that's actually our heritage in building fibre channel solutions. You may not be aware it's actually a Brocade product because we actually sell our product through a number of various vendors who rebadge that product as their own. So you could have a Brocade in your environment and not even realise you have. Having said that, we grow by acquisition, and in the past 2 years, we actually purchased an IP company. Rationale there is we're actually bringing the goodness of the different protocols, the different technologies together to be able to provide a total solution going forward around fibre channel over Ethernet, around iSCSI and the like. From a Dell perspective, it's been a 14-year relationship. Dell actually OEM our product, and in fact they have now the complete portfolio, almost the complete portfolio of our SAN fabric product. And as it was said in the beginning, and you look at potentially standardisation, I tend to look at it as more open standardisation, where you can actually provide a one key solution from one vendor, being Dell. They have the servers that you require for that virtualisation. They have the storage around compellent, and they also have the network infrastructure to bring that all together via the relationship they have with us. And very briefly on a couple of firsts, I mean, we brought out 8 gig fibre channel around 4 years ago. Our competitor has only just caught up with us on that, but we've just announced 16 gig. We actually have a roadmap for 32 gig going forward. I mentioned I'd talk a little bit about protocols. These are just some industry statements based on how customers or how you may be deploying fibre channel or deploying virtual environments. And as you can see there, essentially over 70, close to 80% of most environments that run virtual instances run on a fibre channel type backbone. That doesn't necessarily mean other protocols aren't in use. As you can see there are other protocols being used. But fibre channel is a proven, robust solution. And it is one that even Gartner, they have this IT clock which talks about where technology is today and where it's moving to in the future. They list fibre channel as one of those which is at the zenith of industrialisation. It's a great term. But in essence, they're saying that it's very robust, it's accepted by organisations, there are no issues associated with this particular protocol, and they see it as at least a 5 to 10 year life cycle. And as I said, we are already talking about 32 gigabytes in the future. Very briefly on the evolution of the data centre, I think we're all pretty familiar with what's happened over the past, but like 10 years ago, consolidation. It was all about storage consolidation. That's really where Brocade came into play. It was about doing more with your storage, consolidating all your data into areas, but having any-to-any connectivity of that data through fibre channel-based switching. And then, of course, virtualization came into play. And a similar type of concept. You do more with what you have from a CPU. And we meld that together, and I think as one of the statements said, we create this private cloud where we just have this bottomless pit of resourcing available to the end user or to the client. Of course, if you're providing that or saying to a client that, yes, you have this available anytime, 24/7, then you need to have the actual infrastructure to be able to support it no matter what. We actually see the industry moving to a mixture of private, public type clouds. We call it a hybrid style arrangement. Having said that, the products I'm going to talk to you about today will give you an understanding of just what we mean by supporting a cloud, taking the data center to the cloud. So I'm going to introduce the new products. I'll run through these very quickly. Again, if you're not familiar with Brocade, these are the products that Dell do provide to you under an OEM relationship. So they sell these products, they support these products. It's part of their solution when they're selling their storage. In the past, we've had switches that scale for your needs. So again, the whole requirement from us is to provide to you solutions that will scale with your need, not just a solution and try and crowbar it into yours. So we have switches that start anywhere from 8 ports for small deployments up to what we call our chassis-based products for high port count, high bandwidth, high availability type requirements. As well as that, we also have embedded blades. So we actually have embedded fibre channel type switches that go in Dell's servers, Dell Blade servers. We have embedded fibre channel over Ethernet switches that also go into Dell blades. We have host bus adapters, and there's a reason we have host bus adapters, and I'm going to touch on it very, very briefly. And again, if you have questions, we'll be able to talk more about it outside. Having said that, the 8 gigabyte products out there, we've just released 16 gig in 2 particular form factors. One is a chassis-based system, another is a rack mount, and I'll briefly go through those. So we talk about our chassis-based directors. These are, as I said, the high availability, high bandwidth type products. If we look at the 4-slot chassis there's 2 types, 4-slot, 8-slot, the same product, just one is a smaller form factor depending on your need at the time. If you look at the 4-slot, anywhere up to 192 ports at 16 gigs, so it's a non-blocking architecture. And the reason we talk about this is as you start to want to increase your bandwidth and you have a greater workload coming from your servers, you have to be able to meet that workload within the fabric to be able to talk to storage as well. And so these products do support 8, 4 and 2 gigs, so there's an investment protection there as you move forward. As everyone said, it's not forklift required here, it's investment protection. You you purchase this, but you still coexist with what you have in your market, in your environment today. A couple of key things about these products though, and I mentioned it before, within a cloud environment, we are actually opening up resources, I guess, in a sense, to everyone. You want to be sure there's security there. So we provide in-flight encryption on the data so that if you have these devices talking to each other and it's being shared amongst multiple users, potentially in a public cloud, then that data is encrypted as it's in flight. So there's no opportunity for anyone to actually come in and interrogate that data. On top of that, we have in-flight compression. Again, that assists you with your data, your backups, or even your disaster recovery across sites. Again, another requirement within Network Fabric. We've also incorporated into these products what we call capability to connect directly into metro-type wide area networks, or even fibre channel over IP networks. And the rationale there is that you want to be able to move your data off-site for disaster recovery purposes, or even off-site just for where you do your point-in-time backups. Very briefly, there are options. This is a modular product that has the capability to scale a number of different blades. The two I would talk about here are fibre channel over IP. That therefore gives you replication capabilities from here to Sydney or from here to London. And we have a lot of these deployed today where we replicate data between varying countries via IP. Also fabric-based encryption, where you can actually encrypt your data at rest to meet the compliancy requirements that industries are now placing on you as a customer. Having said that, I mean, if these products are too large initially to meet your needs, we have rack-mounted type devices, and the 6510 is a 1 unit in size rack-mountable switch. Again, it's a non-blocking technology. It starts at 24 ports, and we actually scale that box up with port licenses. So you can start at 24, add 12 ports, add another 12 ports to take it to 48. And then on top of that, we have connectivity between these boxes as well. These all support the encryption, the in-flight compression. The key things here are that, they're, from a power perspective, they are rated as the lowest consumer of power against all of our competitors, and that is a big thing with data centres today, managing your environmentals, managing your power costs and such. In the interest of time, I'll move very quickly through this. I also mentioned adapters, and some of you are probably sitting there thinking, this is great 16 gig technology, but what can I connect to it at this point? Well, there are 16 gig HBAs out there. We actually currently provide an 8 gig HBA in a standard PCI type format, but we also have what we call an NAIO adapter, which supports 16, 8, 4 and 2 gig. But on top of just supporting fibre channel, it supports fibre channel over Ethernet, it supports iSCSI, all in the one card. So it's a very neat little package. Having said that, I mean, Compellents will come out with, or may already be out with 16 gig capabilities today. So, again, when we first introduced 8 gigabytes, a lot of customers said, I'm not even using my 4, why do I need 8? Well, if we go back to this whole concept of change is inevitable, you have to plan for the future. We know it's coming. We know that as you start to deploy more servers, more virtual instances, and I mean the abilities there with the release of the latest generation of Dell servers, we're talking about a 300% increase in workload capability. So all of a sudden, these servers can push more data. Your network has to be able to handle that data. So these products give you investment protection for that. Fibre channel over Ethernet, a very quick introduction to what this is. Hopefully a number of you have heard of it. If you haven't, you may have heard of data centre Ethernet, converged enhanced Ethernet. They're terms that were originally put out there when this was first ratified. The standards body is actually now maintains this as data centre bridging, and encapsulated in data centre bridging is the concept of fibre channel over Ethernet. The rationale they moved to this was that the Ethernet within the data centre Ethernet was confusing people because it's not your father's Ethernet. It's not what you were used to. This is a totally different transport media. You need different product to run it. You need different product to connect into it. Having said that, it's out there. We've deployed a number of fibre channel over Ethernet solutions, and we have a number of solutions through Dell that can satisfy data centre requirements. In essence, though, what it is, it's converging IP, fibre channel into one transport, which, if I move to the next slide, if I was to look at it simplistically, if you looked at a rack, if you looked at a rack with a number of servers, and those servers are connecting to a SAN, and those servers are connecting to IP, you generally have 2 IP switches, you generally have 2 SAN switches, and lots of cables. If we were to deploy a solution that can actually consolidate fibre channel and IP, you start to reduce the infrastructure. So you reduce the cables, you reduce your adapters that are in the servers, you reduce the switches. So there's already an opportunity for cost savings there just by doing that. Now that is a very simplistic view of fibre channel over Ethernet, but it is available today and is deployed today. Having said that, with Dell, we have an embedded fibre channel over Ethernet switch. So this particular blade goes into the new blade chassis, and it actually provides fibre channel, it provides iSCSI, it provides fibre channel over Ethernet, depending on what you need, or if you only need fibre channel today, it will do that, but it'll give you investment protection as you move forward. So this representation here, really, it shows you what I'm talking about. The fact that you deploy this blade, you can talk to a fibre channel infrastructure that's sitting out there. You can talk to a fibre channel over Ethernet-based storage array. I mean, we have other legacy devices or other devices out there running different protocols. You can talk to a LAN via IP traffic, or you can talk to an iSCSI system, all via the one blade. It saves costs. It is a data centre solution. It's a layer 2 solution, therefore it doesn't really provide cross-site connectivity at this point, but is cost saving within the data centre. And lastly, and hopefully I haven't moved through this too quick, but again, please come and talk to us, a takeaway, SAN Health. What is SAN Health? It's a tool that we developed over 10 years ago. It's actually a tool that can be run on an existing SAN, and it can actually be run on our SAN or a competitor's SAN. What it does is actually interrogate the SAN. It's a static view of the SAN, but it'll give you an idea of the servers, the storage, and the SAN infrastructure that's within that environment. From a customer perspective, it gives you a snapshot of what you've got today. I mean, these networks grow over time, and sometimes they get away from you. So it gives you a snapshot of what you've got today. From a partner perspective, consulting to a customer, it gives you an opportunity to have a view of what the infrastructure is in place and make some recommendations, because this particular account could have a lot of older switches that have grown over time, and there's an opportunity there to say consolidation. We can bring these all together into a 16 gig type deployment and save you money both in maintenance and in just ongoing costs associated with the older products. So as a snapshot of what I'm talking about, and I mean, I think a lot of people get to this point with their whiteboards, they start small, they've got a little SAN, they're talking about, this is great, I'm connecting my disk here, I'm connecting my tape here, but it grows over time, then a port fails and they rub it out, and next thing you know, you've got this mud map of a board just sitting there and you're thinking, that's my network and I'm controlling a $1 billion company on that, what happens if something fails? SAN Health will give you a Visio diagram of your existing infrastructure, all of the storage, all of the servers, all of the CPUs, and the SAN fabric. It'll tell you how the ports are behaving, and from there, you can work with Dell, you can work with your Dell representative and us to help you look at best practices and how you can move that particular infrastructure you have today forward using the new technologies. The beauty is it's a free utility, so you download it from Brocade.com or you talk to your Dell representative and they will download it for you and provide it to you. You run it, you get this nice view of your infrastructure, and from there you can make decisions that you need to make because, as I said, change will occur. It's going to come up before you know it. And so with that, I thank you. As I said, I ran through it pretty quick. We do have my colleague here that is based in India. There, his contact details there. Please reach out to him if you have further questions when you go away today. But otherwise, please come and have a chat to us. Happy to go into more depth on this. I don't think we've got time for questions. I'm not sure. But if not, most definitely let's meet later.
We have time for one question if there's anybody who has a question.
A pressing question,